We thank you for making Locked On Eagles and Locked On Texans your first listen each and every day. Welcome into another edition of Crossover Thursday. Today's episode of Locked On Eagles and Locked On Texans is presented by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. Pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you go up to 10 times your money on your entry. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON. That's prizepicks.com, promo code LOCKEDON. I'm Louis DiBiase, host of Locked On Eagles. He's John Hickman, host of Locked On Texans. Eagles-Texans tonight at 8:15. John, how's it going, man? First time to talk in a long time.
Yeah, we haven't talked since the Senior Bowl,
right?
Back
in
February. And what's kind of funny is, I don't know about you guys, what you were scouting for the Eagles, but, we were out there, and one player that I really loved, not only with the practice, but just speaking with him during the open media sessions, was Dameon Pierce. And we ended up drafting him, right? I remember that interview, which is great. So, but it's been a while, man. It's been a while. Good to see you.
Yeah, you too, man. Down in Mobile, I was actually looking at a lot of quarterbacks. I was looking at Malik Willis and Kenny Pickett and Desmond Ridder, but the Eagles have not needed that after Jalen Hurts has taken a huge MVP-like step in 2022. Right now, according to our official sportsbook at BetOnline, he's second in MVP odds, only behind Josh Allen. So, John, you see the Eagles are the only undefeated team left in football at 7-0. The Houston Texans at 1-5-1. Two teams in very different points of a rebuild, for Houston. The Eagles, it's kind of funny. Both of these teams were kind of in a rebuild at the same time with what happened with Carson Wentz and Deshaun Watson. But, the Eagles have done a great job really speeding up that process. For you in Houston, what is the state of this team for our Eagles listeners? How many core pieces do they have along this rebuild process?
I would say for the most part, the 2022 draft class. That is the core pieces for Houston moving forward. I would also go back a couple of years ago to John Grenard, who's been battling injuries. And I think that, I don't think that John Grenard is going to be the stud sack getter, but I think John Grenard would be a very good second man. We just haven't seen him play football enough here this season after a lot of high expectations during the offseason. But I will say this. And again, I want to mention Dameon Pierce, Keon Green, Derek Stingley Jr., who's been coming along great, Jalen Petrie, one of the stars of this young defense.
Another Senior Bowl standout, by the way, Petrie.
Yeah, very, very. He's balling. I will say this for us here in Houston. You mentioned we're on two different planes right now. You guys are building a contender powerhouse, right? AJ Brown in the offseason. I can't wait to ask you about Howie Roseman, Devontae Smith stepping up, getting your quarterback weapons. And here in Houston, it's the total opposite. Davis Mills, right, don't have weapons. And then the weapons that he do have, well, Brandon Cooks once out. That's the biggest storyline for Houston right now. Made it publicly known that he didn't really necessarily want to be here. A lot of things going on behind closed doors. He was supposed to go to Dallas. That deal fell through because of the money compensation and what Houston was willing to eat and what they were not willing to eat.
Yeah.
Then you have Nico Collins, who for the Texans have been the best receiver this year. He's also questionable. Actually, I think he's out for tonight's game against the Eagles. And so not a lot of weapons here in Houston, and it's going to get ugly real fast.
Yeah, John, that's the thing, too, about this matchup is the Eagles, I feel like, already had a significant advantage when it comes to just overall talent on the roster. But Houston's coming into this game extremely banged up on both sides of the ball, whereas the Eagles are still fresh. They played the Steelers on Sunday, but they're coming off that bye week the week before, and they're relatively healthy, right? So it looks like the Texans are going to be missing some guys tonight, and even if they're playing, they're going to be pretty limited.
Absolutely. And let's look at the Eagles. Let's be realistic about this game. The Eagles are one of, if not the most dominant team in the NFL right now. The Texans are one of, if not the worst team in the NFL. As a matter of fact, the power rankings for ESPN, they were ranked 32.
Yeah.
So this is not a good team. This team was not put together well. This team does not have a one star that you can say may be able to take over a game. And then on the opposite end, taking on Philly, shout out to the Astros, by the way, but taking on the Eagles, you guys have stars at almost every position. Of course, you're going to be without Jordan Davis, who I was really excited to see. He was a player that I loved in college at Georgia, but you still have go-getters up front that can stop the run. You got big play Slay out there at corner.
Mm.
He will probably have an easy day because he ain't got nobody really to hold. But overall, we got to talk about Jalen Hurts, man, the hometown
Yeah.
kid from the city of Houston, East Side kid, and he has done tremendous this season, just taking a big leap in his production.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think we always knew there was a certain floor with this Eagles team in 2022 because of how talented the roster was. Even last year, they made the playoffs with a worse roster. And you knew this team could be an elite rushing team anytime they wanted to be. Number one rushing attack last year, an elite offensive line. We knew Jalen Hurts was one of the best mobile quarterbacks in football. But why, down at the Senior Bowl, the last time I saw you, I was watching quarterbacks, is because I was very skeptical he could take this kind of step as a passer. In the pocket. Right now, Pro Football Focus only has Tua Tagovailoa as a higher graded passer than Hurts this season. I mean, what he did in the pocket, especially last week against Pittsburgh, the ball placement. I mean, he had 3 of the most improbable completions according to Next Gen Stats on those 3 touchdowns to A.J. Brown, what he's been doing. And a lot of it, as you mentioned, is the roster that general manager Howie Roseman has put around him. It's a lot easier to throw to A.J. Brown than Jalen Reagor last year. But at the same time, John, it's the work he's put in. It's the relentless work ethic, the development in his mechanics, his footwork, his pocket presence, the timing, being in a system finally for 2 years in a row has been so crucial. And yeah, I'm eating a lot of crow and our Eagles listeners will tell you that for sure. But I'll tell you what, it's the best tasting crow I've ever had.
I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous that you guys have a
Davis Mills
team.
not the guy, man. Like, how do you feel about your quarterback situation? Are you just really looking to this draft class with Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud?
Absolutely. Going into the offseason, listen, I was fair. I felt that at the very least, Davis Mills deserved an opportunity to get 17 games, right? And we were out there in Mobile, and I've been on record by saying I didn't think there was a quarterback worth taking in this draft this year. For Houston, maybe other franchises, but for Houston, if you're going to take a quarterback, this has to be a franchise-changing quarterback, and it just wasn't in this draft. So I like what Nick Caserio did. I didn't like what he did in the offseason with free agents. However, it's hard when you're kind of strapped with money, and Houston is not a pretty opportunity right now, maybe like other franchises, but there was no quarterback that you can really hang your hat on. And Davis Mills, how he ended last season, deserved 17 games. Through the course of the first, 9 weeks now, it's been bad. He has not been good. There's been moments where maybe you can place blame on the lack of weapons. There's been moments where you maybe can place little blame on the play calling. But ultimately, overall, when we analyze Davis Mills here in Houston, he has regressed. He's not hitting the same throws. He's not as accurate as he was last season during his rookie year. And it just looks bad. So I still struggle on whether or not I go with Jalen Carter, number 1 overall, if I'm Houston. If I have the opportunity to pick one of those quarterbacks or Jalen Carter, I would love Jalen Carter. But I think that when you look at the problems of Houston, you can't blame them for wanting to go with a quarterback with their first pick.
I agree. And I think that's kind of the silver lining with a team being that bad is that's when you have an opportunity to restart and get a franchise quarterback. I was kind of nervous, maybe like with Davis Mills last year. That's what I was nervous about Jalen Hurts this year is if he was good and showed flashes, but overall it still wasn't consistent enough. But it was enough for the Eagles to just keep moving forward and win a certain level of games where you're picking in the middle of the first round. So it's not worth taking a quarterback. And so, I guess it's kind of good that Hurts made that MVP like step. And with Davis Mills, I feel like with a quarterback, John, you either want him to take that step or no step at all and move on and find another guy that has that capability. So I guess that's definitely the silver lining for the Houston Texans, but they still have to play these games. We got a Thursday night battle coming up tonight, kickoff at 8:15 between the Eagles and Texans. We got matchups coming up next right here on Crossover Thursday. But first, shout out to one of our sponsors of the day, and it's Blue Nile. Whether you're looking to pop the question, have a milestone to celebrate, or want to let your love sparkle, Blue Nile can help you make your celebrations even more memorable. As the original online jeweler, Blue Nile offers the largest selection of independent graded diamonds in pieces priced significantly below traded retailers. Blue Nile has helped millions of couples create their perfect engagement ring. Their easy online tools let you choose the diamond, shape, size, and clarity, as well as setting style. Blue Nile's bench jewelers will then help you handcraft her perfect one-of-a-kind engagement ring. Looking for a piece of fine jewelry to commemorate a special milestone, but still having trouble choosing? Blue Nile has jewelry experts on hand 24/7, available via phone or chat to help you find a memorable gift at every budget. Shop stress-free with Blue Nile's 100% satisfaction guarantee. All Blue Nile orders are insured and shipped for free in discreet packaging. They also offer overnight shipping if you're in a rush. Make your moment sparkle with Blue Nile. Go to BlueNile.com and use the promo code LOCKEDON to save $50 on your purchase of $500 or more. That's BlueNile.com, promo code LOCKEDON to save $50 on your purchase of $500 or more. BlueNile.com, promo code LOCKEDON. We thank you for making Locked On Eagles and Locked On Texans your first listen each and every day. Guys, make sure your second listen is the Locked On Sports Today podcast. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insight only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Louis DiBiase. He's John Hickman. And John, we got a 8:15 kickoff today between the 7-0 Eagles, the 1-5-1 Houston Texans. And we kind of talked about how different, planes of existence right now these two teams are, and Houston's very banged up compared to Philadelphia. But regardless, in the NFL, we know anything can happen, and especially on a short week. You just never know. Thursday Night Football is really weird. If you had to think about a couple key matchups that could dictate this game overall, what's like the first key matchup you think of?
For Houston, it has to be attempting to control the line of scrimmage. This last game the Houston Texans just played, that game was difficult. Why? Jeffrey Simmons had a day. Made it very difficult for a Houston Texan offensive line with a rookie left guard. Your right guard, A.J. Cann, was out that game. He'll be back. He was back in practice after battling injury. He was out. And then we look at Quisenberry, who spent some time out of that game due to a minor injury, getting banged up. But overall, if I'm scared of Jeffrey Simmons and the Tennessee Titans defensive line, then there's no difference from the Philadelphia Eagles defensive line. And so for Houston, they've been pretty effective on the ground this year. One of the better running teams in the league behind Dameon Pierce, who has been phenomenal for this offense. The offense goes where Dameon Pierce carries them. So if he's not getting involved in the game and if he's getting shut out, then this is what's going to happen. I know you guys see this, but yeah, just going to go ahead and look at their white flag. But that's the biggest matchup to me. Like, I look at big play Darius Slayton, who, by the way, I don't understand Matt Patricia calling him not a number one cornerback a few years back.
Man, it's crazy. I have no idea.
And then that game against the Vikings early in the year, boy, was that a performance by a cornerback.
It's the only game Justin Jefferson couldn't do anything this year, John.
And Justin Jefferson is one of the best premier receivers in the league. And Big Play just had him in Rikers. So I don't see a receiver here in Houston to challenge that. So that's not a matchup. Right. I don't see Davis Mills taking too many shots down the field. So your secondary won't be a matchup. But then on the defensive side for Houston, I don't see Houston really keeping up with Philly offensively. Mm-hmm. So it does come in the trenches. If you want a shot to win this game. And for defensively for Houston, they've done a very good job of bending but not breaking. Mm-hmm. Right? Teams don't necessarily come out of the red zone with a lot of touchdowns outside of what we saw against the Titans. So they got to control the line of scrimmage. They got to get Dameon Pierce involved, find ways to get him involved in the run game, find ways to get him involved in the passing game. That's the only way Houston's going to have an opportunity to put some points on the board.
I think Pierce is going to be the key here, especially with the Eagles. They have a really deep defensive line. They still have Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave, Milton Williams inside. But, John, they did lose Jordan Davis, who was their best run defender, their first-round pick this year out of Georgia. He did just go on IR yesterday, so he's out at least 4 to 6 weeks. So he's not going to be playing in this football game. One of Pro Football Focus's highest grading defensive linemen this year against the run.
Monster.
So, an absolute monster. And that's one key is, he was huge in stopping the run. When they've been using more of these 4-man fronts with Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave, that's more when, a DeAndre Swift has been able to attack them with the run, or even an Eno Benjamin in Arizona. They had trouble with him when Jordan Davis wasn't on the field. So Dameon Pierce is going to be the crucial piece for the Texans offense. Also, too, because the Eagles, have been an inconsistent tackling team this year. And we know how physical Pierce was. I think that's the first thing that popped up in my head when I watched him in Mobile. It's like, man, this guy never goes down at the point of first contact. And so I think that's going to be crucial on that side of the ball. For the other side, yeah, I agree, John. I feel like it has to do with the trenches because the Texans are the 8th best team this year when it comes to passing yards allowed. Derek Stingley against A.J. Brown is going to be a really fun matchup. I think Jalen Petrie at safety is going to be key, trying to make sure the Eagles don't have, last year the Eagles had, or last week, I should say, they had 4 touchdowns of all of 25 yards or more. So that's going to be huge. But the Texans are dead last against the run this year. And we know the Eagles last year were the number 1 rushing attack in football. So trying to contain
and I also think
Hurts
that's a big reason why. I apologize.
Yeah. No, you're good.
I also think that's a big reason why we won't necessarily see too much involvement from the secondary. Outside of Jalen Petrie does a very good job. And as much as we've criticized Lovie Smith in this outdated, ancient defense, he does a very good job of allowing Jalen Petrie to play his game, getting him around that line of scrimmage, using him as a run the box, in the box run defender at times, which has helped Houston out. But overall, I think it does come out to Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, what you guys are able to do on the ground. Hurts just being super effective in this game with picking his poison, however he wants to dice the defense up.
Yeah, I agree. Eagles, and they need this win. Although they're undefeated at 7-0, they got Minnesota at 6-1 right behind them. The other 2 teams in the NFC East already have 6 wins. So even at an undefeated record, they can't get comfortable and they can't overlook this Houston Texans team, even though they, I think, severely outmatched them. It's still going to be a game that they got to take seriously and hopefully put away early. John, we got predictions coming up next. This is Crossover Thursday with Locked On Eagles and Locked On Texans.
Absolutely. But before we talk about the predictions for Thursday night's game, BetOnline is still your number 1 source for all of your betting, football, and the start of the new basketball season needs. Find all of the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth analysis on each and every game. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all of your betting, sports wagering information, live betting, and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about BetOnline because BetOnline is where the game starts.
This is Crossover Thursday right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm Louis DiBiase, host of Locked On Eagles. He's John Hickman, host of Locked On Texans. Eagles-Texans tonight on Thursday Night Football, 8:15 kickoff. The Eagles are undefeated at 7-0. Houston's 1-5-1. John, prediction time, taking a look at BetOnline. It looks like the Eagles are 13.5-point favorites here. So I think we're both going to agree if we had to go money line, right? If we just had to take a team outright today, it's going to be Philadelphia. But maybe just for our betting listeners, do you believe that Houston can cover in this game? Can they keep it close? Maybe some garbage time? If you had to put your money on that, what would you be doing?
Let's not lie to the people. 13.5 favorites.
Yeah.
So that's two tutties.
Touchdowns. Yeah.
Yeah, I see it. I see this game getting very ugly, honestly. I do. I don't think that Houston at this point in the season is ready for a team this dominant. They got guys out. They got important guys out. And the issue, guys, and if you like the Locked On Texans or you like the Texans, and if you've been checking us out, or even if you're an Eagles fan, we can go back to the offseason, Louis, and what I've been saying the entire time. Yeah, they did a piss poor job of bringing in depth and talented depth. Houston has routinely this year ran with 4 wide receivers active for game days. That's been an issue. That's been an issue of not being able to use certain wide receivers and players on your roster to their best advantage. That's been an issue. The lack of depth, again, that's been an issue. Now you got Brandon Cooks questionable. I don't believe he will play. He's disgruntled with the organization right now. The best receiver, Nico Collins, is out. That leaves Houston with Chris Moore, Philip Dorsett, Tyrone Johnson, who was just signed a few days ago, and O.J. Howard, Jordan Akins, and Brevin Jordan. It's not enough for Philly, man. So you guys are contender ready. Houston is first pick ready. This is how it's
opposite
looking.
Ends. No, I'm with you. I agree. I'd probably take the Eagles to cover there. And, some Eagles teams in the past, I would be nervous about overlooking an inferior opponent. And, you have that prototypical trap game in the NFL, but this Eagles team is so mature from top to bottom, not only the veterans, but the young players like Jalen Hurts and, Devontae Smith and these crucial young pieces on both sides of the ball. I just can't imagine they're going to not take care of business tonight against Houston. Like I said, they need this win at 7-0. You can't get comfortable and you can't afford a loss to anybody because you got other teams in the NFC that are battling with you for your own division, and you're trying to lock up this first round bye. And that's crucial for the Eagles because you look at the last time they won the Super Bowl in 2017, the playoffs ran through Lincoln Financial Field. And if Carson Wentz back then didn't get them home field advantage, I don't know if Nick Foles goes into Atlanta or goes into Minnesota and gets a win. So home field advantage is so crucial for the playoffs. And there's only one bye week in the playoffs this year for each conference. So I think the Eagles need to start, keep stacking wins and, take advantage of this matchup tonight against a banged up Texans team that is already rebuilding. But we'll see what happens tonight, John. Kickoff at 8:15 Eastern
got a question, man.
Go ahead.
How, because I'm jealous. I'm really jealous.
Yeah.
How this team has been placed together by Howie Roseman, man. Like how does it feel to look at a general manager and say, one, you had the balls and the guts early in the offseason to say, we're not moving on from Hurts. Right. Then you go out there, you trade for A.J. Brown. He's worth it. Devontae Smith takes a step. You draft Jordan Davis. Big place. Like the way he put this team together, it's almost like God himself has to walk down and say, I don't really want you guys to win the Super Bowl this year because it's put together that damn good.
John, honestly, I wanted Howie Roseman fired after 2020. I thought it's very similar to Houston. And we know the Deshaun Watson situation off the field, but I feel like both teams, and just in a vacuum about their former franchise quarterbacks, did a horrible job of building around them, right? I think when the Texans traded away DeAndre Hopkins, things just were not the same. I think when Howie Roseman kept trying to build around Carson Wentz, it wasn't working. And then they won 4 games. And I said, I think he was the reason that this whole thing got torn down. But just like in 2017, he has done an amazing job of cleaning up his own mess and not taking long to take this team from the basement to the top of the league. And like you said, every move he's made has been great. He's had a perfect balance of drafting well, being aggressive through trades, getting A.J. Brown, the right free agent moves. James Bradbury has been just as good as Darius Slay on the other side of the ball. It's just been a perfect storm of like trading for Chauncey Gardner-Johnson in the end of August. He's got 4 interceptions already this year. And then grabbing Robert Quinn at the trade deadline. Roseman's a mastermind of really adjusting on the fly. And a little bit is luck, though, I'll tell you, because although they've always believed in Jalen Hurts, they sniffed around other quarterbacks. I think they were in on trying to trade for Russell Wilson this year if he would have waived his no trade clause. Thank God that didn't happen. I think they were interested in Deshaun Watson if he was interested. In Deshaun. I think last year they had some interest in trading up for Zach Wilson. I think they wanted to try to make things work at times with Carson Wentz. So sometimes you need a little luck in the NFL for things to go right. And I think that's also what happened in Philly for sure.
Nakobe Dean, what's going on with that?
Yeah, look, TJ Edwards and Kazir White, the starting linebackers, have just been amazing this year. So it has nothing to do with Nakobe Dean not progressing, not developing. I still think he's going to be their starting will linebacker next year. TJ Edwards and Kazir White are both free agents. I think they're going to bring in one again this offseason and let Dean kind of take over next year. So I've wanted to see him on the football field. Maybe we'll get some of that action tonight if the Eagles are blowing out the Texans. But and it's crazy because the Eagles have had such bad linebacker play for so long. But Kazir White and TJ Edwards have been just that good.
If you're listening, God, just 2 things. Bless us with a general manager that's able to put a team together like Howie Roseman.
I'm rooting for you, man.
And the Astros close it out. Amen.
I don't know, man. The Philadelphia Phillies. Yeah, we got Houston Philly all week long.
Yeah.
Make sure you guys subscribe to Locked On Eagles and Locked On Texans on all podcast platforms and on YouTube as well. Both of us are going to have a recap show for you after the game on Friday morning. And let's get our Twitter handles in there as well, John. I'm at DiBiase LOE, and where are you at?
I'm at John_Hickman12.
Perfect. Guys, thanks so much for making Locked On Eagles and Locked On Texans your first listen today and every day. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Enjoy the game tonight, guys. And John, as always, it's great talking to you, man.
Good talking to you too, Louis.